the expert.
Are we ready to go?
Yep.
All right, so good afternoon, everybody. This is the meeting of the Nantucket Harbor Plan Update Committee. I'm your acting chair today by default, Seth Engelborg. We don't have to go through the whole script anymore, but let's just do a roll call of the members and the staff present. So starting with members, Peter Brace,
Here.
Steve,
Here.
Emily,
Here.
Jesse,
Here.
and Seth is here. Anyone else in the room, Jeff?
Nope.
All right, staff, when I call your name, Jeff,
Here.
Tara,
Here.
Kim,
Here.
Dak,
Here.
Shannon,
Here.
Jack,
Here.
and I think that's it. So we have an agenda that was provided. Do we have any questions or additions to the agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, by roll call vote, Steve,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Jesse,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So our first item on the agenda is it looks like we, Pete, do we have the minutes from May 20th?
Oh, the minutes. I apologize. I sent out the agenda late and Peter, I put Peter on the spot with his minutes up there and he didn't know he was supposed to do them by now. So.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, we'll table the minutes for now, so that will bring us into discussing issues and recommendations. We'll be talking about water quality today. And who's taking this for us?
Gonna be me.
So Shannon is going to.
All right, thanks, Shannon. Lead the way.
Just get my screen shared. Okay, so just an overview. We did start this section already, and we began with going through the matrix from the last plan and recommendations from the last plan. And so we went through about half of those. So we're going to continue to go through those older recommendations before we get into the new ones. So we stopped, let's see. All right. We are at objective 3. Sorry. Under, it's our goal. There we go. To maintain and enhance the water quality of Nantucket and Mattocket harbors through education, monitoring, research, and the dissemination of information. All right. Down to objective 3. Adopt new bylaws to ensure that water quality is maintained and improved. So this is the section that we're going to start with. So the first recommendation was inform parents of the Children's Protection Act, request IPM plans from Park and Recreation and Boys and Girls Club, and require all schools to have IPM plans. Looks like this has 0%. The thoughts on this?
What is an IPM plan?
I think that's integrated pest management, right?
Yeah.
Integrated pest management?
Mhm.
I work with kids probably the most out of anyone here. I've never heard of this act. Maybe that's my fault. But I, having worked extensively with Boys and Girls Club and other providers on the island, I don't think anybody has these in place. So we probably should contact some of those organizations before we make recommendations on their behalf.
So is it worth removing this one? Oh, Emily, I see.
Yeah, Emily, go ahead.
Thanks, guys. I'm sort of eating my lunch, which is where my camera's been off, but I think I mean it's a good question, Seth. I have no idea if the Boys and Girls Club have one, or if Park and Rec has one, but it's I mean, as far as like the use of chemicals and pesticides in the landscaping, they might. I think that's what it largely has to do with. So I don't know if we need to just remove it or if it's something else to follow up on. I mean, well, I guess maybe a better question is what our role is of trying to enforce the Children's Protection Act. I almost feel like it might be more appropriate for us to have a recommendation about the town having an IPM plan for its properties that are within maybe watershed areas, and to try to make sure that the town is implementing appropriate use of pest management. That's just sort of one thought. I'm not sure where this came from last time around, but
Anyone else have comments on that one? All right, so it looks like there's definitely something valuable for integrated pest management, but maybe we need to discuss about what that is. This seems oddly specific for a harbor plan in my opinion.
But I think it could probably come out, because I'm not really sure how it fits with the part of the plan, but I think it's definitely something to follow up on as a non-harbor plan related.
I can kind of only imagine that there was just discussion about the use of like pesticides and such for private properties, landscaping care within the harbor watersheds, but this does seem like an odd way to try and address that.
But I think it's important to remember that this stuff was all developed even before Article 68 work group had finished. This would have been 09, and that didn't come online until later.
Okay, so maybe it's not this exact recommendation. It'd be important to still include some information about IPM and watershed in relation to harbors. That's kind of what I'm hearing. I think I'll move on to the next one. Adopt warrant articles that can reduce or eliminate quick release fertilizers and excessive use of fertilizers within the harbor's watershed protection districts. So it sounds like this might be ongoing, or there was some effort towards it.
Yeah, I mean, we did this, what Jeff was talking about with Article 68. I think if you look at what that regulation actually says on paper, it's probably the best written fertilizer regulation in the state, and the most stringent by far. The problem is how it's actually enforced or followed in reality oftentimes doesn't reflect the reality of what's on paper. So we've had many discussions over the years about what to do about that. And I think we do need some strong recommendations moving forward in this harbor plan about additional education, about legislative updates to that text, about reinvigorating the Landscapers Alliance or organization that no longer exists, about maybe providing incentivization for compliance. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways that we need to do better about people actually following what the regulation actually says.
Yeah, I'll just be super blunt with Seth. We just need some sort of goal that ensures that the town provides the resources and kind of reinvigorates that program, because it's just kind of stalled.
And if I can just hop in on this one, I think Seth is right. I certainly agree with everything Seth said. As far as adopting warrant articles, I mean, we all know we're sort of waiting to see if there's approval from the state to reopen a window when we could potentially make some amendments and changes to our existing fertilizer regulations. So I think having some kind of recommendation in here, and maybe we just leave it as is for now for simplicity, but that kind of reminds us that we're still, from like a regulatory or legislative perspective, interested in continuing to pursue improvements as possible.
Thank you, Emily. And I will say, like, even though they didn't end up necessarily getting anywhere from the state level, I think we've had 3 or 4 different fertilizer regulations be approved at town meeting that build off of what was originally adopted. So there is obviously a care in the community to do more than what exists today, and I think we should promote that. Anyone else have thoughts on this one? All right, Shannon, I think you can go on to the next one then.
Thank you. Okay, recommendation 3, instruct planning board to draft new zoning bylaws that protect waters when possible. Use recommendations from comprehensive wastewater management plan, the septic management plan, and the estuaries project.
Anybody thoughts on that?
I mean, I know there is a harbor overlay district, but that doesn't really accomplish what this recommendation is seeking to do. I don't think, and again, not knowing the exact original purpose of this, it seems like the coastal resilience plan should also be included or incorporated into this now as well.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, is that list all inclusive of the plant, everything that should be taken into account?
I would say definitely not.
Well, and does anyone sort of know what exactly what kind of protections or what the concept was for this? Was it just sort of general, like?
Having a tough time trying to think of the language of the zoning bylaw that would do this. What it would hope to accomplish, with the by and large, mostly privately held land on the harbor.
Well, I mean, I think for some of it, some of it may be, updating things like stormwater standards, or you're gonna be doing, work, how you're managing your surface water flows. That could be something that's covered within zoning. Or design standards, right, if you're gonna subdivide a lot, like what's gonna happen for your roadways within the watersheds. I just don't know the last time those things have been updated, if at all.
I think it's a good one to leave in.
All right, anyone else?
All right. Okay.
Shannon, back to you.
Thanks, Seth. Recommendation 4, ensure all town contracts for landscaping have IPM in place, minimizing or eliminating pesticides and herbicides, and only permit slow release, low nitrogen fertilizers.
Somebody in 2009 was really into integrated pest management. I mean, I think the goal of this is great. I mean, I think we want to minimize the excessive use of fertilizers and agricultural chemicals when necessary, but the practicality of it is maybe a little bit different. Like, I think if someone's doing the landscaping for the Natural Resources Department office, you know, in Mid-Island there, a different standard needs to apply than if they're doing something for the harbor master's office right on the harbor. So I get the idea, but I think it's almost too broad in my opinion.
I think that I mean, maybe it's within the harbor watersheds, town properties, or within, I certainly, I feel like, the town contracts, this is a place, like I said before, I forgot that this was in here, that this is a place where we could focus on really minimizing or eliminating the use of these through requiring an integrated pest management plan. I also would, sort of look to Jeff to ask about updates. I know, Jeff, we've had conversations in the past, probably well over a year ago now, about trying to make sure that all of the town's landscaping contracts required that there be pretty high standards as far as following the town's BMPs and making sure that I mean, obviously, all the landscapers would be licensed by the town, but really trying to make sure that the contracts reflected what's in the best management practices for fertilizer use as well on all the town properties, and that there was would be some more sort of public outreach or education, even using the town and their landscapers as an example for other community members about what steps they are taking to comply with the BMPs as an educational opportunity. So I would love to just hear an update on where that is at in process.
Yeah, I know the latest round of contracts included some of that. I think with a goal like this, I wonder if it would make more sense to try to put the focus on through the contract to develop property specific kind of management plans. So we could do just what Seth said, to say that if you're managing the landscaping around the harbor master building has had tons of times, but down there or 37 Washington Street is right across the street. That needs to get managed in a different way than the Plus building or the old fire station. I mean, and this is still in the watershed clearly, but it should be differently. And I think knowing what those are and working with those, because I would hate to develop language that all of a sudden, and I know it's kind of an extreme leap, but if we start to continue to do, you know, things like Phragmites management, and we're developing a contract with the landscaper to do that continued work, to say our whole, the harbor plan has prohibited the use of herbicides when we really need to use herbicides in some of those cases, right? Like, but I think maybe some sort of incentivization for property specific plans, because then I also think that's something that you could roll out to other people to see if other landscaping companies could use those as templates for their own property specific plans for their clients too.
Yeah, or even making it a requirement of the bid process, like when you submit your application for the contract, you're required to provide this information. And that the town will judge your bid not only on the financial aspects, but on the ecological aspects as well.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot, Seth, and I think Jeff, that makes a lot of sense, particularly for the IPMs and pesticides and herbicides, but I do think that the town should certainly have something in all of their landscapers' contracts about following the BMPs for fertilizer use. I mean, ideally, there are some properties within the harbor watershed that maybe the town could update its contracts in the future to say no fertilizer use on these properties, and use that as an example and hire a contractor who wants to manage the property without any fertilizer. But I think that that should be sort of standardized across the board for town properties, if it's not already, that they have to follow the BMPs.
Anyone else who hasn't spoken on this one? All right, then let's move on to the next one, Shannon.
All right, Rec 5, establish a bylaw prohibiting dumping of pollutants in storm drains, include prohibitions against long-term dewatering.
So Jeff, the illicit discharge regulations that went into place, that this covers that, right?
Yes,
So, and we can take those regulations and include them as a appendix in our harbor plan, I'm assuming.
yes.
All right, so that,
Kind of add to that, that's something where there definitely needs to be some more public outreach and education on. We kind of play catch up as we go on it, but it definitely should be more well known.
well, I think the recommendation here was done is more just getting the people to know that it exists now. Anyone else have thoughts, questions, comments about that one? All right, Shannon.
Number 6, where applicable, adopt recommendations from the estuaries reports as bylaws.
Anyone have any context for this one, Jeff or Tara, or history about what this is?
I mean, we originally, when we passed, well, when we adopted the estuaries plans, and they're obviously full of a few recommendations. Some of them involved, expanding sewers, some were fertilizer management. I think we've done a lot of the things in there. I actually think a better goal would be, and it's something we're doing for the Nantucket Harbor watershed, where instead adopt recommendations from the estuaries reports to bylaws is we're really at the point of that life cycle where, the Nantucket Harbor watershed 1 turns 20 in 2 years, that we need to update all of the estuaries reports and update recommendations. Like I said, we're kind of in the process of doing that for Nantucket Harbor, but I think, obviously we'll have to do Connecticut and Long Island at some point too.
Okay.
Most of those plans are pretty old, and I'm not even sure how much the state is even still running the estuaries program like they had been in the early to mid 2000s.
Any members have comments on that? All right, let's move on then.
All right, ensure that goals, okay, recommendation 7, ensure that goals as stated by the Board of Selectmen regarding water quality, septic, and stormwater management are stated to incorporate the recommendations included in this harbor plan.
Yeah, I mean, I know the select board has gone through multiple rounds of strategic planning, obviously since then, and in their latest rounds, water quality and environment is a component. I'm just not sure that a planning process like that, which is on a much smaller timeline than our process, we have like a 10-year planning process here. They've updated their strategic goals recently every 3 years, I think, or every 5 years. I don't know if we necessarily need to align to what the select board says at this point. I think we could just put our own recommendations forward. And ultimately, this report has to go to the select board for adoption, right?
Yeah.
So they have to sign off on it saying they agree with us anyways.
And it almost sounds like the purpose of this one was to try to make sure that the select board's goals reflected the harbor plan's recommendations. So to your point, Seth, I think they will have to sign off on it, so.
I mean,
I think you just get rid of this personally.
their last strategic plan, they had a goal of developing a, water resources management plan that we did. And now their new strategic plan is to implement that plan. So those things kind of exist.
We can remove that one.
Anyone else have comments? All right, Shannon, you're back up.
All right, recommendation 8, adopt new bylaws that incorporate the best management practices suggested in the Office of Coastal Zone Management Clean Marina Guidelines.
Thoughts on this? I don't know what this is personally, so someone who knows what they're talking about could chime in here?
I don't even know what those are anymore, if they even exist.
I was gonna ask Urban Harbors if they knew.
Okay.
Well,
Anyone from Urban Harbors know what this is?
Federal no discharge zone in the whole harbor and everything, so I'm not sure what clean marine guidelines are.
They sound good, but
You know, I know, back in the day, they did develop some clean marina guidelines. There was a pamphlet put out that, I don't know how up to date it is, or if it's, I believe it was put out in like 2008, so that's probably what this is in reference to. That was supposed to give, you know, best practices for marinas.
For, yeah, probably for boat washing.
Yeah,
things like that.
exactly.
But since we're federal no discharge zone, they're not supposed to, technically not supposed to have any soap suds or anything that go into the harbor.
Yep. Do you think that's followed or? No, yeah.
I mean,
it looks like the last update that CZN did to this was 2007.
Mhm.
so I'm not sure this section really even applies at this point.
well, I wonder if, because
it-
this whole objective is about adopting new bylaws for water quality, I mean, I don't think it's a horrible idea to at least at some point consider whether there are bylaws that have to do with either marina management or just sort of more environmentally friendly boating guidelines to consider, but I don't know if it needs to be tied to CZM specific.
And I think the boat basin has a pamphlet that they hand out to people about being good stewards when they are tied up in the boat basin anyway, and using better practices.
Maybe it's just something about either adopting or researching bylaws that could improve boating practices for water quality in the harbor. I'm not sure like, right off the top of my head what all of those are right now, but
All right, I think that's good enough for now.
could I actually ask about adding a new recommendation to this section, which would specifically be to finalize and implement or adopt, whatever the right word is, stormwater regulations for Nantucket? Because I think it would be really fabulous if one of the recommendations that came out of this for the select board in town was to really prioritize completing some stormwater regs for the island, because we could really use them.
Sounds great.
Yeah, I think that's one of my recommendations in the new set of recommendations, Emily.
Isn't the town already working on that, Jeff? Isn't there a stormwater plan being worked on?
We have started and stopped that multiple times, but I have to check in with sewer to see where they are. I think the latest one's tasked with that. But I don't think it hurts to include in the plan that we should be doing it.
I agree, we should include that.
I think you're right, Peter. I think they are working on it, but I still think it would be good to include it.
Anyone else have any general comments about bylaw updates that aren't encapsulated in the recommendations before us? All right, I think we can go on to the next section then, Shannon.
Okay, objective 4, increase and maintain regulatory notices to inform the public of potential health risks associated with shellfish closures and the consumption of fish from ponds. Recommendation 1, multilingual regulatory notices should be placed at ponds with fish consumption warnings issued. This names the ponds.
It's funny, I was actually just talking with one of my interns about this morning. A number of years ago, we had talked with Roberto at the time about some work that we did with the state to resample fish tissue in a number of our ponds. And a couple of them still ended up with results that really mean that the ponds should be posted. And I don't think they ever have been. I think this is probably a good one to leave in here, and we're sort of hoping to be in touch with the health department and NRD and see if this is something that we can just easily like tick off.
That's something that we've been historically involved with, but we're happy to help out.
Thank you for all doing that, and I just would like to say, I think we don't need to necessarily specify it, but the language composition of Nantucket is continuously changing. So making sure that our signage is reviewed on a regular basis to reflect that. For years, Spanish was probably one of the most common languages on Nantucket, and now Portuguese is probably as common or maybe more common. So we need to make sure that we're reflecting the current population rather than just printing signs once and putting them up for 10 years.
I would love, while we're talking about it, does just among this committee, do you guys feel like those are the three languages that would be predominantly most useful now for this type of signage around ponds? English, Spanish, and Portuguese?
I mean, just from my experience in my day job, we post our informational signage in the top 6 languages that occur on Nantucket as defined by the Nantucket Public Schools. It's not the only way to do it, but it is a way that's relevant to kind of the community. And we've noticed that the composition of those does change. So, you know, translation services these days are very, very cheap. Like a few dollars. I think it cost $20 to translate something that was 500 words the other day when we did it. So if we could just keep maybe annually or every couple of years checking in to make sure that it's still appropriate for the community, that would be my recommendation.
Great, thank you, Seth.
Anyone else?
All right. Recommendation 2, check and maintain all regulatory notices related to shellfish closures, post multilingual signs.
So Jeff, when the closures happen at the state level, do those only come in English on the website, or are those in multiple languages?
I feel like they usually just sell them, but they usually just send them in English.
And is there, so maybe we could have a way for when the letters to come in for them to be translated and then reposted on the town's page?
That might be possible. Or there may be a way to request the state to send them in other languages too, but you may have to request it.
I think here too, it's not signage as much because the areas are dynamic, like the areas that are open or closed change annually or even during the season, they can change. So I think it's more about digital resources or virtual communications in this example. Other thoughts? All right, objective 5.
Okay, identify and reduce non-point source pollution by using best management practices and methods available. Recommendation 1, implement the stormwater infrastructure improvements outlined in ERTEC's 2005 stormwater outfall analysis, including all BMPs and recommended technologies.
Any thoughts here?
Yeah, I feel like the CWMP has updated that. All as a bit of.
I don't remember what all of those were from our Act 2005 stormwater outfall analysis. I mean, ultimately, again, I guess this kind of goes back to like us having our own stormwater bylaw and regs as well. I think, again, maybe it's appropriate to sort of chat with like sewer and stormwater before finalizing what this recommendation looks like, but maybe there can be a recommendation to update stormwater outfall analysis and infrastructure improvement plans. I think they're actually working on that too, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Gotten off kilter with HDC deadlines on Mondays. We weren't doing that for a long time, and then somehow the weeks ended up with their old business, new business, and this is new business.
Hi, Linda, how are you?
Hello.
So I've been chairing in your stead, but I'll give it back to you since you're here.
Well, you can keep going.
Do you want me to or not?
Who's here? I see Emily.
Online, we have Emily, Jesse, and Seth.
Okay, we're in the room. We have Steve. Oh, you're here.
Hello, I'm here.
I was looking for you up there.
I'm here.
And I know Phil's away. And Dave?
No,
Okay.
No, Dave.
You know, Sam
No, Sam.
is all done. She resigned from the NSA. Samantha Danette, she resigned from the Nantucket Shellfish Association,
Wow.
and there's somebody else in her place, a guy named Kenneth Korn. So I don't know if he's gonna be joining us.
Well, that's interesting. We should probably reach out.
I think technically that seat needs to be filled. I think we need to probably advertise for that because the seat is not the Shellfish Association seat, it's the Fishermen's Advisory Council seat. So somebody who doesn't work for the Shellfish Association could hold that seat if they were involved with that council. So maybe that's a question for the staff or for you, Linda, but I do think we need to advertise to fill that seat.
Well, that we were all filled through, well, I came from the Concom, but we were all filled through the select board.
Yeah, select board, but that's that was one of the designee positions, so it was reserved for someone from that specific group.
Well, they're in the middle of
We can-
advertising now, so you gotta sort it out with Erica.
All right, Jeff, can you do that?
Oh,
Okay,
we'll sort it out.
okay.
And Linda, I'll let you take the reins since you're here.
Bless you. So Kim, you're managing this from over there?
Yes, I've got the Zoom up. I'm just gonna stand for a minute.
Shannon's running this section.
I think we're-
But yeah, Shannon is, Shannon is sharing the screen.
Okay, yeah, we're just going through the recommendation matrix from the old plan. We're finishing that up because that's what we ended on last time. And
Okay.
currently, the objective we're on is identify and reduce non-point source pollution by using best management practices and methods available. And we're moving on to recommendation 2, which is establish a comprehensive list of all ponds and coastal areas that require rehabilitation. Prioritize each water body using criteria such as state of degradation of habitat, public health concerns, reduction in state threatened or protected species, essential fish habitat, spread of invasive species, etc. Develop a coordinated program and timeline for rehabilitation and identify potential funding sources. It's a hefty recommendation.
No, I've got an issue with that only because of the jurisdictional issue, because the great ponds are not something we're dealing with. But they need to be looked at because a lot of times you can't even fish in Hammock Pond and eat the fish because it's contaminated.
But Long Pond is connected to Maggot Harbor by the
Harbor.
ditch.
Yeah,
So
by the ditch.
technically, we went through that with Bruce Mandel, how far could the
Yeah,
study area, could the jurisdictional area B and I guess we could argue it, but eventually it'll expand to cover all of that, so.
But should we be more specific when we're talking about ponds? That we're specifically talking about Long Pond because of its connection to Mattocket Harbor?
I should be more specific for this.
Yeah, because we're not involved with Sacagawea, we're not involved with Hummock Pond, and we're not involved on this thing with any of the other smaller ponds.
I think the town's water quality plan already addressed this.
Yeah,
That's what it's in place with. And that covers, it's not bound by the geographical area.
so I think we need to sort of cut it down or be very specific when we're talking about ponds and we're talking about Long Pond. Does that make sense?
It could specifically reference our, the boundaries for the plan.
And I'd just say in addition to what Jeff was saying, when this was originally drafted, the town didn't have a water resources specialist, which we do now. We didn't have the robust sampling program that we do now. So I think that was all done on a staff level internally, and I don't see any evidence that they're gonna stop doing it, so I think it's fine.
I mean, Natural Resources Department didn't even exist.
Yeah. So we gotta be a little more specific or cut it down. Yeah. Oh my God, the age-old question on number 3. Short of sitting there and shooting them. The dogs don't work, the Gatorade doesn't work.
Yeah, so Rec 3 is investigate the feasibility of reducing excuse me, I can't speak today. Nuisance species such as Canada geese and mute swans. Educate the public regarding impacts.
Do we need to keep this in here?
I mean, I think it's the same question as everyone's always talking about, like you're saying, Canada goose is a huntable species, but very few people on Nantucket engage in hunting for geese. And I mean, I guess we could say that you should do it to have water quality impacts, but is that really the purview of our plan here? I'm not sure about that.
And on top of it, I don't see them in the harbor. I see them in the ponds,
Oh, I see.
on the football field. Are they on the harbor too?
I think it's more
Oh,
like, I think it's more too like.
They are horrible people. Those are horrible things.
There are hordes of them there.
We're talking the geese
Yeah.
and the swans in the harbor too.
Swans in the
Yeah.
harbor. I know they're in the
And
harbor.
the problem with the swans are that people don't understand that they are an invasive, the mute swans are, I guess, Seth, you correct me, but they're an invasive species on Nantucket. But everybody loves the swans, so it's one of those species that is a problem, but you can't get anywhere eradicating them or removing them because people get upset if
They'll go hug a swan. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, mute swans were brought to the United States specifically for the purpose of being used as a hunting bird. And then people's opinions on swans changed over time, and now very few and nobody in Massachusetts really is hunting swan. So when you talk about programs that would cull or do lethal management of swans, probably not going to go over very well on Nantucket, even though it's probably for the best ecologically. I think we need to put our efforts into other places that are going to be able to be supported.
I know there has
They
in the
were running
past,
this thing the last time we were here too.
there has been a sign at Consu Springs in the past about not feeding the ducks, but I don't really know beyond that.
Oh, that's never gonna fly either. Literally,
also-
figuratively.
will not be.
There's also excellent video. There's
Bread
also excellent
issue.
video featuring me and Jeff that is about not feeding the ducks. If Jeff remembers that one.
Oh, very well.
What was this one?
It's, some folks did a short for the Nantucket Film Festival on not feeding ducks, and it's pretty fun, but it also has a good message to it.
Mhm.
And Seven's in there and I'm in there, Roberto was in it. It's pretty good.
Maybe they should show it again.
Yeah, we could do a big screening at the Dreamland.
It's not that long, it's only like 4 or 5 minutes long.
Actually, it did show at the Dreamland for the Nantucket Short Film Festival.
Well, it starts on Wednesday.
I'll find the link, send it around.
So what do we want to do with this one? I mean, it says 25%. I'm going. How do you quantify that? Because it's actually, they're all still here. So what is the what is the feasibility of getting rid of them?
The 25% is them figuring out that there's nothing. to do
Nothing you
about
can
it.
do about it, yeah. So
Yeah,
do
I think in this case, it's not a feasible recommendation, even if it's an ecologically beneficial recommendation, it's probably not a feasible thing.
Try to hit them with your boat.
I mean, another problem for the harbor too, but it's small, but it's there, and people, use all the beaches on the harbor as dog parks. They rarely pick up after their dog.
Yeah, that's a problem. They think burying it's gonna work. It's
Yeah,
not.
so they mean. Dog extra, doesn't help the harbor.
Now, what about this section about saying something about the dog issue on the beaches, on the harbor, instead of this dealing with geese and swans, which will never fly?
I mean, there are regulations for the dog, they're supposed to be on leashes and. Which
Should we say enforce
there is-
dogs,
I don't know.
enforce that?
Regulation about thinking about your dog, so maybe if there should be.
Do they have the little bags and the little thing to put them in at the public beaches? Probably not.
Who is that?
Well, maybe that should be done.
DPW issue.
Well,
Let's pick it up.
I know it turned into other issues where people were like taking a million bags at one time.
Taking all
And the
the
boxes are getting vandalized, and then what we were finding a lot was people were bagging it and then they just leave it in the bag.
Yeah, I find that on the beaches
Find them all over
too.
the place.
They bag it and then leave the bag on the beach, which is biodegradable bag, so it's like.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, what do we do about that?
Why pick it up at all?
Could make a recommendation to. Bylaw, it's an enforcement, nothing's gonna enforce it.
It's be impossible to catch. Yeah, you have to like, be lucky to be there when pleasure time, watch the dog go to the bathroom, watch the person walk away from it, and then. But I don't see that.
Well, isn't it more of an education thing?
Yeah, but I feel like there aren't very many signs on the island that say.
Pick
you
up
know,
after
just
your
all the
damn dog.
beaches, just to pick up after your dog.
Well, maybe craft something in this section, this recommend number 3 about educating the public about the damage that your dog can do on the harbor beaches. Maybe that's not a bad idea. So instead of trying to deal with the geese and swans, which is a losing battle, we can deal with something people do on, here we go, on the beaches.
It's a nice alliteration.
Yeah. Okay. On to the next one, which is objective harbor ops.
Could I actually ask one more question about the last objective? Just, and I don't know what the exact right answer for this is, but considering that the last objective is to identify and reduce non-point sources of pollution by using best management practices, I feel like one of the biggest non-point sources of pollution that we're trying to reduce in the harbor is fertilizer. So I sort of feel like we need to have something in there that speaks to that. And I know that there's a bullet about this later on in the newer issues. So I don't know exactly what recommendation to put in here about fertilizer use.
Were you here at the meeting where we talked about this fertilizer thing at length? What, 2 or 3 months ago? And the impact on the harbor? And what to do about it there? Yeah,
Yeah.
because we're talking about enforcement. We were talking about the regulations that they have to meet from the state and local codes as to what kind they use. We had a long discussion about that one issue.
The natural.
Was it natural resources part? So
Yeah.
we should probably track that because we're talking about water quality again. Whatever we dealt with in the earlier section should probably migrate over here. Because that's really a water quality issue as well. But we spent a lot of time talking about that before.
Yeah, I remember that. Thank you, Linda.
That would make a lot of sense because this is where the rubber meets the road here on water quality. Anything else about periodic dredging, water quality? We dealt with that a lot elsewhere, the dredging issue. And I think we were talking about before in a different section, being more regular with it. Doing the permits in advance and being more proactive, regular, instead of like reacting to it. I don't remember what section that was in.
Navigation.
For access, maybe? Navigation. So maybe some of that should migrate back over here about periodic dredging, because we had come up with some sort of a recommendation that it becomes more more
It's
regular.
already, as part of the
Yeah,
sediment transport plan, the contract, there's a dredging plan being worked on as part of that. So that's,
yeah.
I know that the sediment transport plan study, the data gathering is done. I don't know if it's been compiled yet into something that people can read, but the dredging plan is part of creation of that, right?
The state will approve like a 10-year dredging plan. That's what. Then 10-year.
So we might want to migrate that over to this section too, that information. I mean, there are going to be redundancies throughout this whole report, but you can't say certain things enough. Okay, onward and upward.
Okay, so this completes the matrix from 2009. So now we're going to move on into the 2023 issues, I guess 2024 issues too, and suggested solutions and recommendations. So the first one we have here is a concern for increase of harmful algal blooms. There needs to be better public education to teach people about the causes of fertilizer use, faulty septic systems, runoff, stormwater, and increasing water temperature from climate change. And there needs to be more hands-on community science regarding water quality. So a couple recommendations that are included here are develop a community science water quality monitoring network with local volunteers. And then where you can at public and town events, the town could conduct outreach for water quality issues.
Education, 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 education. And that should be a handout or should be put up on the town website or something.
They should have, with respect to Emma, our water quality specialist, and posting the harmful algal blooms information on Instagram account and on the town's website. Whenever there's a pond that's been compromised and she has to tell us about it. There should also be signs that are there all the time that tell people there is the potential for this to happen to this pond. So people don't think, oh, I didn't see the post, so it's okay.
To the pond, which are not in part of the heart.
Well,
So
Hummock
that-
it's closed down a lot because of that and toxic fish.
Right, that's not part of it.
I know it's not. But Long Pond could head in the same direction. Yeah,
That signage point has already been taken care of, and actually there's a new update to the signs for this year that hasn't been put up yet, but the signs should be coming in soon, where there's going to be 3 different signs. One sort of like for the off season when no blooms are available or not available around. One that's a green one that's yellow when blooms are possible, and one that's red when a bloom has been detected. And then also in terms of the HABs monitoring, I would say this year there's a new protocol that is greatly increased or more beneficial than the past. So in the past, all the volunteer sites only did visual observations of harmful algal blooms. This year, all the partner organizations are collecting water samples and giving them to Emma to actually process in the town's flow cam so that they can actually tell if there's any algae detected. And that just started this June, so it's a much improved protocol from the past.
right. You should probably say 2023/2024.
Yeah,
I would say too, the Nantucket Biodiversity Initiative has done a few things through its aquatic threats committee that are related to the public education you're talking about. There have been volunteer trainings on pond health and water quality monitoring and harmful algal blooms, and we don't plan to stop those anytime soon. We plan to continue them, but I think all organizations need to do their own part as well.
Well, certainly education for people who are dumping their stuff overboard or releasing their stuff in the harbors. You know, there's a education, you can't do that. That was part of that pamphlet that we wanted her to give out down there at the when you get your moorings, and there's this education again all across this, because if people become educated and aware of just how damaging everything's getting for the scallops, for the harbor health, for all the other fish in the sea, they may be a little bit more cognizant of it. And if they see someone else doing it, they may say something. So you see something, say something kind of thing. Okay.
recommendation, issue 2. The town is lacking in stormwater management. Current stormwater infrastructure has been ignored since put in place. For instance, most/all the catch basins have not been cleared out of debris. Stormwater outfalls and are not regularly monitored, but there are known issues of pollutants from the outfalls. Additionally, there are instances of people dumping illegal contaminants into stormwater drains. And there's kind of a variety of recommendations here. Develop a stormwater management plan, which sounds like there's ongoing effort towards that, but we want to keep it as a recommendation. This stormwater management plan should include a methodology for outfall sampling potentially. Emily, I know you guys had put in a proposal about this because I know there are definitely some issues with outfall monitoring.
Yeah, we were working with the sewer department, who's now been charged with managing stormwater just recently. Jeff would know better than me when that transition took place, but and the grant we applied to the state for, we did not get, but we've since received an additional grant from Great Harbor Yacht Club Foundation and maybe another small foundation as well. So we are going to be moving forward with that to do some monitoring over the next 2 years of 5 of the outfall pipes in the downtown area, which my understanding is that then the sewer department and the stormwater folks will be able to utilize that along with some of the other infrastructure feasibility studies that they're looking at as far as improvements go. Use that information to help prioritize some infrastructure improvements for the future. So we are going to ultimately be moving forward with some of that monitoring.
That's great.
Fair to do, and apparently the state does kind of annual testing on some of the stormwater stuff as well. So. Maybe try to work that out.
They do annual testing on Nantucket.
Yes.
Hmm.
But
Who is it that does that, Jeff?
I'll have to check and get back to you. I don't know.
It did, on June 4th, DMF was here doing water quality testing in the harbor in relation to the shellfish bed closures, the annual closures.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, the DNF does come out to do testing and they test for other things like people call for them and they have their spot around the harbor, but they check. They do that as well.
Yeah, so some of that might be more focused on shellfish health.
Yeah. And I know usually annually too, they have us, I know this is not related to stormwater directly, but we also have to do like tissue collection for them, so we'll send an actual shellfish from the water they test, but I don't think that's purely related to stormwater by any means.
Okay, some of the other bullet points are coordinate with DPW staff the stormwater task force, cleaning maintenance of storm drains and catch basins. So I know this is something that they are trying to work on and trying to figure out.
Well, they don't have the machine here. The guy that comes and does it
The vacuum truck.
has to come over from the Cape, and I'm not sure that guy's still doing it anymore.
Yeah, some kind of
Because even on these
vacuum.
private subdivisions that want them cleaned out,
Yeah,
they have to hire somebody to come over and do it. But the town, from what I understand, doesn't have that machine anymore, and they really should have that machine on Nantucket. What, that's stupid not to have one here.
so yeah, we should put in about,
The other problem, not to speak for sewer, but I will, is those tailings from catch basins, when you pump them out, are classified as hazardous material, and we don't really have an on-island disposal site for those.
So he comes over and he sucks them out and he goes away again with the truck.
Okay.
But they really should have their own damn truck here for that stuff, because there's so many of these catch basins that just fill up with everything
they
from
have
the
no
cars.
truck, but they can't get
and
rid of it.
everything.
Once it's in the truck.
They just send the truck over.
I thought, Jeff, didn't the DPW get one of those? I thought that we had one of those trucks on Island.
We do have a vac truck, but again, that's still the problem, right? Is you still have to have somewhere to dispose of whatever you're gonna pull out, and it doesn't get cost effective or time effective to every time you fill up the truck to have to ship it off to empty it.
And it's not the same size truck as this guy comes over with.
Yeah, I think there was still gonna be a big issue with all of the private catch basins, but I feel like I heard, I don't want to put words in his mouth. David Gray say that he's just at least exploring how we could possibly, even on a temporary basis, deal with some of the materials from catch basins, but I don't know. That definitely is still an issue.
Well, it's a big issue all over this island. With everything coming off the roads and if there's a fire, all that stuff gets poured. I mean, it's just. This catch basin thing has been going on since I was a kid. A problem with these catch basins all over the place, public roads, private roads, you name it.
Bioswales.
I just have Lake Williams in front of my house because the thing fills up so fast. It's not going, it's not draining. GIS map of outfalls in Nantucket Harbor. Good luck.
Yeah, can I talk about that one?
Yeah,
Because it's not only the outfalls. I know it's not our current DPW director, but I asked a past DPW director for a map of where stormwater pipes were in a specific area, and they don't have any maps of any stormwater drains, any pipes, anything. It seems like a pretty basic thing for a department if you're managing infrastructure to know where that infrastructure is. I think that is number one priority of stormwater management is to know not only where the outfalls are, but where the intakes are. I think that's the first thing we have to do before we implement any bylaws or regulations. We don't even have the data to show where things are. So that needs to be the number one priority, from my opinion, in this plan.
well, I tell you, they know where the ones are down on Easton Street.
There's a couple of locations where they know where they are, but for most of the island, they have no idea.
No idea. You'd have to go find the intake and then you'd have to sort of snake it and follow it. Or you'd have to test all around the harbor to see where those concentrations are. Because there's probably hundreds of them between Mattocket and town.
There is
There's
a map.
definitely hundreds, but we need them to be.
There, there is a map, and if Dave Franzula were here, he could tell you, because we at SHAB, were able to get a hold of it. I can't remember where we got it
Is it
from.
comprehensive though, or just
for
somebody's idea of a
downtown
thing?
It's for
Yeah,
the
downtown, they know.
It's for the waterfront. There's 52 outfall pipes for the whole, I believe, for the whole harbor, going from Wallwinnet all the way.
Holy crap.
Down to Brent Point. So some of them are obvious. You can see the ones like at Francis Street Beach, you can see that thing going in, and you can see the ones emptying into Easy Street Boat Basin and
By the yacht clubs.
by Anglers Club, Straight Wharf, but a map does exist, so.
Well, we should have an idea of what's happening.
I'm talking not about just the downtown area. I'm talking about the whole watershed, but
Yeah. Because they are where,
Well, I'd say too, having seen them, there's also a lot of them where the mapping can be correct. But when you open up the location to look at it, and the map shows a pipe coming in and a pipe going out, you open it up. And there's another 8 pipes going in, and you have no idea where they're from. And that's what a lot of these are, right?
Yeah.
They're just all the tie-in, you know, what capacity are they taking up? How much they're flowing, what are they connected to?
where they're going.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
part of the issue.
so there seems to be a comprehensive issue here. And the next one probably goes along with, well, okay, what are we gonna do now? You can't use zoning for this stuff. So take zoning out. It doesn't have anything to do with any of this.
Well, but aren't there some requirements, at least for MCDs, for stormwater management?
That wouldn't be zoning. That would be planning board requirements for an MCD, but that's not zoning necessarily.
It's in the zoning bylaw though, right?
No. What's in the zoning bylaw is prove your drainage, prove this, prove that, prove this. When the minute you get to it's permit process as opposed to zoning. I would use a permit process for development. It's already required. That's required. You have to give them a drainage plan, all kinds of stuff for your site. And that usually only applies to major commercial developments, not the normal, I'm building a house kind of people. Yeah. And so there may be stuff involved with this section that's just a residential thing as opposed to an MCD. So, and not necessarily redevelopment sites. It's vacant lot development site. So I don't think the way it's phrased is correct. Well, this next thing, the questions,
Yeah, I know there's just issues with illicit discharge, and I was just curious
Yeah.
what the committee's.
well, that sort of the illicit discharge is running rife all the way through this report. In multiple sections. So we clearly have a problem with illicit discharge.
In the town, like back in the early 2000s, that is when Jeff Willett was still DPW, they did the investigations and cleaning out with the smoke, you know, the
Oh.
infiltration and inflow that determined all the pipes that had water from the ground flowing into cracks in the pipes, as well as
Yeah,
that was infiltration, and then inflow was pipes that were illegally tapped into the sewer system.
We still do those.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say, I mean, the town did pass their first illicit discharge regulation set last year. And that's what I referenced earlier, that we need to get more educational materials out on it.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, the regulations and the penalties are pretty serious compared to other regulations that we have on file, but I don't know if they've actually ever been enforced.
Can I ask a question about that? I feel like I remember seeing in them that the Board of Health or Health Department and Natural Resources Department are responsible for enforcement. So is that one of those things where would be by complaint for people to call either NRD or the Health Department to go and investigate a site where there was a issue of concern?
yeah, we will go out on those, and then there's some that we've picked up and some that are kind of in process for what's going on. I'll like use the classic example, we've been trying to work on the ones that are kind of famous on Fair Street. That discharge, that grow algae, for what's going on there.
Oh yeah, I just sent you photos of those not long ago.
So they, we've been there, it's one of those funnels where there's like 6 different property owners that all contribute to it. Everyone likes to go with it. So We're
And
sorry.
they also, just to remind me, Jeff, include construction site maintenance, like if there's an area where there's a pile of soil that then it rains and that's like flowing onto the road and into storm drains.
Yep,
All the time.
it's supposed to be covered within that as well. And then cleanup responsibility with it too, so. I know, we just had one up on the cliff that had an issue that we dealt with.
And can I just ask, since we're talking about it, what do you think would be some good mechanisms to increase public awareness about those regulations?
Handed out with a new building, building permit.
Yeah,
Some sort
we
of
just need
pamphlet?
materials for people and to develop those that people can understand and understand their importance. It's the same problem that we always have, right? It's. Sometimes the folks that put those together aren't the best to explain it because they make it overly complicated. But. Getting it on the list of issues for the town to push out to is also. Can also be difficult.
Maybe, do you think it would be helpful, like, I think we worked with you guys to come up with that, there's that brochure that just is like bullet points and simply outlines the fertilizer regs and the BMPs, so something like that, that's easy for people to look at and just understand like the main take homes.
Yes, I'll also tell you too that we are slated to start that process and we'll definitely get you in on it. We have some funding coming available a new fiscal year to do just that for this program is one of them. There's a couple other ones that we have. Some money that was put aside for public education specifically.
But you know, some of the intake places where they become, they come into the system is when they get a building permit. And that would cover the contractors, the excavators, all those guys that generate dirt piles.
I mean, honestly, a lot of it is, there's not that many companies that generate dirt piles. Those kinds of side, right?
Yeah. I work with all of them, and there's a reason why they all can't be,
Half
had this education stuff going on, is to when they're digging those holes. Some are very close to the water
Yeah.
and in the watershed, that they understand how they're supposed to, because nobody is covering them.
No.
Nobody.
Yeah, and some of it too, right, is also updating. What have turned into age-old practices, like. Stripping the whole site.
I hate that.
Do we need to do that? Probably not.
Well, Toscana is one of the biggest transgressors there.
Well, they are.
Well, Jeff, if you guys are looking for any support on any of those publications educationally, let me know.
Yes, I definitely.
Yeah. I think it's a great, and the more time anybody sort of enters the system, no matter where they enter, whether it's the harbor master, whether it's the building department, whether it's the DPW, we need to blanket the educational pieces everywhere, so they get something every time they enter the system.
What I also say is. It also needs to be consistently enforced and approached within the town. You can't have one group that says, don't worry about it, and another group that's like, no, you have to do it, it has to be consistent.
Yeah.
Then people start to like permit shop or regulation shop around there. Well, Steve said I could do it, so I like, that's what happens, I mean, every time, someone always says, well, I told it was okay. Well, who told you that? We're gonna fix it.
So the other question is, how does this work with private roads? It depends if they're paved or if they're dirt. And a majority of Nantucket's roads that are private are dirt.
Yeah.
And some have drains and some don't. But if they're dirt, those drains are useless
Yeah.
within 6 months. Yeah, and there's no requirement.
I think some of that.
Paved roads, they do have requirements. Or new paved roads, put it that way. Mine didn't. So I have got 2 useless catch basins.
I mean, I think some of that is also, looking at updating those standards for. How do we do it going forward, or
Well, now we have the town engineer on new roads that are paved, the town engineer, even old roads of grading and stuff like that. The Pesci has to look at all these new subdivisions, new roads, new things, but as I say, most of the roads here are old roads.
but we also fight a lot of times. I can't tell you how many calls we get where we get a complaint, we tell people that it's not a town road. And you get the, what do you think?
Yeah.
Well, it's
Oh,
not.
I deal with that all the time.
Yeah, constant.
What do you mean? A fraction of the roads on Nantucket are public
Is
roads.
that super remote paved road is called? Yeah, everything.
Okay, number 3.
Need more water quality data, including more sample size sampling for other contaminants and frequency of sampling. Chemicals and paints are a concern. PFAs and VOCs. Residents are concerned about potential pollution from the landfill to Long Pond, Hither Creek, and Mattocket Harbor. Recommendation includes adding additional surface water quality sampling sites around the shellfish areas near landfill, so Long Pond and Hither Creek, and the boat basin, and sites that maybe are easily accessible by land and could be sampled by volunteers. Potentially pilot testing for other types of pollutants near the downtown area of the harbor. Also, there was an idea of a live water quality monitoring in certain areas. So, you know, you can get a multi-perimeter sonde that can measure all these different things, and it can be left in the water for certain periods of time, and it can conduct live monitoring. So you're not always going out there every month or every week. And then require dive tabs for incoming boats on rental moorings, which I think this is already a thing.
Yeah, isn't most of this already covered somewhere or happening?
I mean, I feel like all of these things are happening. I don't. We've expanded to add more sites recently, and over eight months was helped out by doing some sites. Speaking like the water council, especially when we're talking about water quality. I feel like all of those things are kind of going on. I mean, live water quality monitoring for a lot of that stuff.
It's happening now. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
I'm doing the minutes right now for tomorrow's meeting and Shab's meeting, and Tara just said she put a sonde in Pulpus Harbor and one in Mattocket and Nantucket Harbor, so that's happening.
Yeah.
And
I mean, if people want something where it like displays on the internet of what's going on, I mean, those things are expensive to do and have connectivity issues.
Well, shouldn't we use the word continue to diligently pursue all of these things since they're already happening?
Yeah, I mean, even though they are going on, happening, it doesn't hurt to
Reinforce it.
reinforce it, keep it mentioned, keep it ongoing.
Ongoing efforts to do X, Y, and Z.
the one on the bottom required dive tabs for incoming boats on rental moorings. That's already happening. It's been going on for a couple of years with Sheila Lucy's staff. And I'm putting those physically in the tanks, and then the tablets being paid for by the land council.
And that's actually, that has been going on. I had a conversation with Sheila last year, I think, about whether she thought it would be a good idea to require it, because it's obviously not required, but they ask everybody to do it. And that's one of those things that could get added to the bylaw. Sheila wanted to work on it for another year and then sort of reconsider that, but those are those areas where you try to, through education and outreach, get people to respond, and maybe ultimately it's something that should be a requirement.
I don't have any problem adding that to the waterways bylaw, that it is a requirement. I mean, I said it here before, but when you go into Avalon Harbor in Catalina,
Yeah.
they don't let you in. The harbor master greets you at the entrance, and they won't let you in and get on a rental mooring until he actually puts it in, you know?
Yeah.
Nantucket Harbor is bigger, but it's also easily done. There's one entrance.
She
I
needs
think
more
it would make
cash.
sense for it to be a requirement.
You know, it gets back to another thing about enforcement, but if it's not a bylaw, then there's nothing to enforce.
Of course, yep. Yeah, I've been to Catalina by boat.
Yeah.
Not easy.
They're pretty strict about it.
Yeah.
They're pretty strict.
I know Tara's having issues with the microphone. She also suggested making sure that that's in place for transient boats too.
Oh, yeah. You're right. There's no point in doing anything unless we can enforce it. Unless there's something to enforce.
Right, unless there's something to enforce.
Yeah.
And enforcement in a lot of things, yes, by well knows, goes up and down. And there's times where things are better enforced than other times, but
There's sometimes too where we design things that are really not enforceable. No, this one does.
Well, that's what Sheila was worried about, that we throw things in here as suggestions that there's absolutely no way she's gonna be able to enforce stuff like that
Right,
without,
but it's like.
without 20 more people in her staff.
But it's like a speeding law, I mean, how many people go?
I know you're on that speeding law.
Well, it is, I mean, you post it and.
Or there may be,
people use it, but.
there may be also opportunity in this to have some of that responsibility delegated to places that do rental moorings.
Yeah.
You have
Easily,
it like zero tolerance, like you have to document that. And if we find that there's, although that's not there, you lose your rental moorings, sorry.
You gotta go out of here.
I mean, like, there's ways to work on that collaboratively, I feel like, where you can take some of that responsibility from the harbor master, or say, hey, you have to physically send us the picture of it going in, right?
Yeah.
Or, there's a million ways to get there.
Okay.
that's so much easier with digital imaging and everything else now.
Yeah.
Keep a record.
4. We're closing
Uh,
in, last couple.
Do we want to go to this one? I think it's 2:30.
229.
Oh, okay. Number 4. For the public, the water quality data provided online is complex. While it is helpful for the public to have access to the raw data, it needs to be displayed in a way that the public can digest it and understand what's going on. And how the data can impact decision-making by the town regarding the water quality initiatives. So consider developing annual, biannual surface water quality reports, or even just figures similar to the town's drinking water reports, with sections on Nantucket Harbor, Mattocket Harbor, and freshwater ponds. For the data visualization, you could average the sites within the sections of the harbor for public viewing. You could do storytelling, use reports to discuss what has not changed from year to year in kind of a more visual way versus, using quantitative data, and to provide education on pollutants and best practices for residents.
Simpler the format is.
Yeah, so
The
we
better.
actually have been working on a project with the Great Harbor Yacht Foundation to do a annual report card. And that will hopefully be out, it's just for Nantucket Harbor, it's kind of the pilot round. That will hopefully be out right around the 1st of July, so.
Simplified so people
It
can
is-
understand it.
It is letter grade.
It's water quality for dummies.
It's essentially the harbor broken up into a few different sections, and then overall, it's just your basic ABCD F letter grades.
Okay.
And the categories are, scallops, eelgrass, nutrients, and I'm blanking on the other one. But it's another water quality parameter, and essentially it creates a letter grade, and it says this area is getting an A for nutrient levels, and it's getting a C in scallops and, or, B eelgrass, or whatever it is. And we'll hopefully be able to update those annually. But I will say that always first drafts, especially on stuff like this, hopefully we get a lot of good public feedback on it, because we'll probably get a few significant alterations.
It's water quality shellfish and eelgrass.
Yeah, there is a fourth one.
Or, yeah, like I said, I was just doing the minutes and that's what Tara said. There were 3 of them.
And you're
Or
right,
she forgot.
raw data is just not something you can disseminate to the public and have them have any clue as to what's happening here.
A few years ago, when we started on the WQAP, everybody was like, we want the raw data, so we know what it is.
Well, they can ask for the raw data if they really gotta have it.
Then we got now the raw data. So this is the up and down of how it's going, but yeah.
Okay. Not enough enforcement, that runs through this whole thing.
This is a big one.
All right, well, it looks like we've got just 3 more or 4 more recommendations for issues specifically for water quality, and then we also still have public access to go through, which we'll go through
Phil wanted to
next time.
be here for that.
Yeah. Go through next time, which actually we should check on what the date of. So the
check.
next meeting technically will be scheduled for July 1st.
No,
That not a good, because that is July 4th week. I don't know if people are.
no, and it's another deadline for me, so if we move,
The 4th is
If-
Thursday.
if we move the meetings to the 8th, and the 22nd, I'm okay, because those are old business weeks.
Would that work for people?
I won't be here on the eighth,
Where are you going?
Final Haven.
Oh, I figured you're going up there some point. Beautiful.
For me, you never know in the summer. If the weather's
Yeah.
good, weather's good, maybe out on the water.
Yeah, so we'll just set it for the 8th and we'll see how many people are available.
All right.
How long are you up there for?
8 days.
Not long enough?
It's not long enough.
Alright,
I think a good weekend to go, then week to go. Weather,
Can't.
Great.
It's my sister. It's when she's east. That's when I can go,
oh, that'll be nice.
yeah. Breaks the summer in half,
Okay, does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
so
So
moved.
moved. Second.
second.
We'll all jump up at one time. Jesse,
Hi.
Seth,
Hi.
Emily,
Aye.
Steve,
Alright.
Peter,
Aye.
and I'm an I. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Seth, for
Thank
sharing
you.
that a little bit. Seth, you're a natural.